Book 4, Chapter 8, Creed. The dragon door stood before them, and Zyra could not stop looking at it. She had carried the key in her fist for the last hour of the descent, until the worked metal had warmed to the temperature of her own blood, and the coiled dragon stamped across its face had pressed its shape into her palm. Now she stood at the threshold with the key held out before her like an offering. There was fear in her. But beneath the fear ran something else, something she liked far less, a current of wanting that had no business being there. The door was hers. It had been made for her by hands long turned to dust. Ilara stood at her shoulder, both blades already drawn, and held low and easy, stillness on his face. The others had drawn back. Zira noticed it without turning. Karma, Balin, and Doreen had withdrawn to the far corner of the antechamber, putting the breadth of the room between themselves and whatever the door might disgorge. It was sensible. It was the sort of thing she would do herself, but this weight was hers to carry. The others feared what would reach out and take them down into the dark, the way the Harpies had taken Morthal, the way the world took things when she blinked her eyes.
Any day now, love.
Doreen's voice from the corner.
Before I grow a beard to rival the dwarfs.
You'd not fill it out,
Balin said. Zyra drew a long breath. She set the key into the slot in the door's dark face. For a moment, nothing. Then a click, and a sound like a great spine settling. Then the door slid aside, stone gliding over stone with a hush that should not have been possible for something so vast. Beyond lay another chamber, stone-walled and cold, and the first thing that the eye could hold was the glow. It came from an alcove on the left, where a clear crystal rested on a low pedestal of black stone. The air around it rippled like the air over a summer road, though there was no heat here. A hum filled the room, low and steady and even, and it seemed to rise from the crystal, as though the thing were a struck bell that had never stopped ringing. Zyra stepped inside, and the closer she came, the more the crystal drew her. It was not like the dream. In the dream, the dragon had demanded, had loomed and pressed and frightened. This was gentle. This was a hand laid soft against the small of her back, an old voice murmuring her name. It was not cold, and it was not threatening. It was warm, it was pleasant. It filled the hollow places in her with a contentment she had not felt since. Since when? She could not remember ever having felt it. The scales on her back, the crimson shame, woke and lifted and tingled, rising along her spine as if they had been asleep her whole life, and only now drawn their first true breath. The crystal is calling me, she thought, with the strange, flat clarity of someone naming a fact in a dream. It wants me to touch it. She felt the temptation move in her, vast and patient, and she set her teeth against it. Not yet. Not without understanding what it is. The discipline cost her more than she would have believed. She closed her hands into fists at her sides and made herself stand still, and she was proud of that. Then the others entered, and a ripple of revulsion moved through the newcomers, like a cold draught. Doreen's step faltered. Balin made a low sound in his chest, the sound a man makes seeing a thing rotted past, saving. Karma's hand went to Talon's hilt.
What in whore's name is that?
The paladin said.
There's death in it. Death and the rot under death.
aye.
Balin's broad face had gone gray. He had walked through giants without flinching, had stood in the mud and traded blows with mountains, and now he looked as though he wanted nothing so much as to be elsewhere.
There's a wrongness to it, like a wall built with a body in the footing. I can feel it in my teeth.
It bewildered Zyra. To her the crystal sang, to them it reeked. She looked from their stricken faces back to the gentle blue light, and could not reconcile the two. And a part of her, a part she did not like, felt a secret pleasure that they could not feel what she had. It is mine, Of course it repulses them. It was never meant for the likes of them.
I don't like it.
Doreen had her arms wrapped around herself, a child's posture she would have died before performing on purpose.
I don't like it one bit. Feels like the worst room of the worst house. I can feel it moving over me, patting me down in the dark.
It's counting.
Karma said, his jaw rigid.
The 57. Every name. It's reading them back to me.
It's the wasting,
Balin said, his hands curled to fists.
the slow sickness. No axe bites it. It was in the room when my brother went.
To Zyra, the words made no sense. The crystal poured its warm gold song into her, and they spoke of death and searching and counting, as though they stood in some other room, some hell laid over the same stones.
Lily says we must go. She's so frightened. Eli, we must run.
And every word made the room worse, each voice laying a fresh weight on the pile until the dread pressed down on them like water at depth. On all of them but her. She stood untouched in the eye of it, listening to a different song, and the gulf between what she felt and what they felt frightened her more than any whisper could. What does it say about me that this is the thing that loves me?
Lily says, she says run. She says run.
It's in my head. Get it out. Get it out.
Run!
Karma's discipline finally cracked clean across.
Out! All of you, now! This room is poison! Out!
They went. Karma first, then Balin running, then Ilara, casting one last look at Zira before the corridor swallowed him. They fled the way men flee a fire, without dignity and without shame, and the sound of their boots receded up the passage. When Doreen reached the threshold, she stopped. Zyra felt rather than saw her there, hovering, one foot already over the line, and the other rooted. The rogue wanted to follow them. Every sensible part of her was screaming at her to put distance between herself and this thing. But she stayed.
Cozy room.
Doreen said. Zira did not answer. She could not look away from the crystal. Doreen, with the desperate practicality of a woman keeping her mind occupied so it could not run screaming, made herself look at anything but the glow. Her eyes found a door on the chamber's far side, a way onward, narrow and dark. On the opposite wall, 3 more alcoves with 3 more pedestals. But the spheres that rested upon them were cracked and dead, husks of whatever the blue one still was.
Zyra.
Doreen's voice had lost its forced lightness.
Zyra, love, talk to me. You're somewhere else. I don't like it when you go somewhere else.
It's beautiful.
Zyra murmured.
Can you not hear how beautiful it is?
I hear a kettle from the 7th hell. Come away from it.
Zira took a step toward the crystal.
I want to touch it. I think I'm meant to touch it.
No, not like this.
She caught Zira's sleeve.
Promise me you won't touch it. Not until we understand what it is. Promise me, please.
Something in the pleas reached her. It was not a word Doreen spent freely. Zyra blinked, and a little of the glassy distance left her eyes, and she nodded.
All right, I won't touch it.
Doreen went to the doorway and put her head into the corridor.
Oi! You great cowards. It's safe enough. Come back. We need to sort this out. Druids and trees and before green takes red and all.
A silence, then cautious, echoing up from somewhere down the passage, Balin's gravel.
Is their humming thing still humming?
Yes, the humming thing is still humming. It's a crystal. That's what it does.
And nothing's tried to eat anyone.
Only my patience. Get back here.
A longer pause, a muttered conference she could not make out, and then the slow return of their footsteps. They came back into the room warily, by inches, Karma in the lead with talon bared, Balin behind with his axe up, Ilara drifting at the rear with one hand still clamped to the doll at his belt. They ringed the edges of the chamber, keeping their distance from the blue light, 4 pairs of eyes fixed on Zira and the crystal both. Zira looked at Doreen. She had meant the promise when she made it. She wanted Doreen to understand that the pleas had reached her, that she had truly meant to wait, and that it was not enough. The song had risen again, and her wanting had risen to meet it, and a promise was such a small thing to set against a tide. It was a strange look to send across a room, almost an apology. And then she walked to the crystal.
Zyra, wait, you said…
She reached out and laid both hands flat against its surface. The reaction was instant and savage. Blue streaks leapt between the crystal and her palms, tiny crackling arcs of blue-white lightning. They wound around her fingers, locked around her wrists like shackles of living light, and kept coiling upward, crawling along her forearms in branching rivers of radiance. And inside her, the sensation broke open like a struck dam. It was pure pleasure, an ecstasy that drove straight through the eye of the mind and bloomed there in wave after wave after wave, rapture without object, joy without cause, every dark and frightened place in her flooding suddenly with warm gold light. It was every nightmare's opposite. It was being held, being known, being enough. All the things she had spent her whole life starving for poured into her all at once and without limit. And the world went away. The cold stone, the voices, the watching faces, all of it thinned and faded and was gone, and she did not grieve it. Here there was no world, only the light, only the warmth, only this. And for the first time she could remember, nothing wanted anything from her and nothing meant her harm. She was alone with the thing that loved her. She did not want to take her hands away. The thought of taking her hands away was the only true horror left in the world. She wanted more. She pressed her palms flatter against the crystal and leaned her weight into it and drank. Then the gold began to thin. She felt it the way you feel warmth leaving a room, a draft at the edges first, then the deep chill behind it. The waves came slower. The light that had filled her hollow places began instead to draw out through them, and where it left it did not leave emptiness but pain, a scraping hollow ache as though something were being unspooled from the center of her and reeled away into the stone. The ecstasy did not stop. That was the horror of it. It went on even as the pain rose underneath, the two braided together so she could not tell joy from agony anymore, only that it was too much, that it was taking her, that she had to make it stop. She tried to pull her hands away from the crystal, but the shackles of living light tightened, coiled, held her wrists fast against the surface, and her palms stayed flat where the crystal wanted them. And there was no one in here with her but the thing that was eating her and would not let her leave.
She's smiling.
Doreen said.
Why's she smiling like that? I don't… Zyra. Zyra, hands off it. Now!
Ilara stood a pace from Zyra's shoulder, watching with his head tilted, waiting. For a few seconds longer there was only the crackle of the arcs and Zyra's slow, rapturous breathing. Then Zyra twitched. It was a wrong movement, a marionette's jerk, and her smile bent and broke and reformed as something else entirely. Her face twisted. The rapture curdled into pain before all their eyes. But her hands stayed on the crystal. Sweat sprang along her hairline and ran in a thin line down her temple, down the cords of her neck. She trembled. A sound came out of her, just a moan dragged up from somewhere far beneath language. Ilara did not deliberate. He lunged. He drove his whole body into hers, shoulder to ribs, the way a man tackles another out of the path of a runaway cart, and the impact tore Zira's hands from the crystal and sent her sprawling. She went tumbling into the corner of the chamber in a tangle of limbs and skirts, struck the wall, and lay still. Then Doreen was across the room and crouching over her. Zira got herself up onto one elbow, and that was as far as she could go. She was pale as bone, her lips gone bloodless, a sheen of cold sweat covering her entirely as though she had been pulled from a river. Her breath came in fast, shallow heaves that never seemed to fill her. Her hands shook, Not a tremble, but a deep, palsied shudder she could not still, the fingers that had pressed so greedily to the crystal now barely able to grip the stone floor. But the broken body was not the worst of it. The worst was the silence where the light had been. It had loved her. For one bottomless moment it had given her every starved thing she had ever gone without. And then it had set its teeth in her and fed, and the love and the feeding had been the same act, indistinguishable, and she did not know how to hold both of those truths in one chest. The thing that had held her like nothing in the world ever had was the thing that had just gutted her. She had no name for the grief of that, and underneath the grief, quieter, worse, she wanted it back, even now. Even gutted and shaking in the corner with the cold sweat drying on her, a part of her had already turned back toward the blue light, and it was not the pain it remembered. It was the gold. It would always remember the gold. She would want this again. She would want it tomorrow and the day after for the rest of her life. Ilara knelt and slid a hand under her arm and lifted her with a tenderness. She came up swaying, leaning her whole weight into him because there was nothing left in her legs to do otherwise.
I'm all right.
Her voice was a thread.
I'm all right.
She was not all right. Karma had watched all of it from the chamber's edge, and he had not moved. He told himself it was discipline, but the truth sat in his gut like a swallowed stone, and the truth was that he had fled this room. Twice now. He had stood in the corner while the door opened. He had run when the whisper came. And it was the women who had stayed, the two he trusted least, had held the ground his god's vows should have nailed him to. The shame of it was a live coal pressed to the inside of his ribs.
We move.
His voice came out harsher than he intended, and he did not soften it.
There is evil in this room.
He crossed to the far door and wrenched it open. Beyond lay a short corridor, ending at another door. Karma stepped into it, and his bulk filled the passage. Halfway down, a click. He knew the sound for what it was the instant he heard it, the small, sick certainty of a mechanism committing. Then a sharp thwump of released tension, and a crossbow bolt drove up and punched into his chest, the steel head grating against bone. He grunted, a deep, furious sound, and his hand came up to the shaft jutting from his chest.
Go back. Move.
He backed out of the corridor by inches, testing each footfall now, and rejoined the others. He snapped the bolt's shaft off short and let the head sit. The pain of it stoked his anger hotter, and that anger was looking for somewhere to go, and it was not inward. Doreen, half a step behind him, peered down the corridor.
There's a raised tile. Halfway down, left of center, you can see it sitting proud of the rest. That's your trigger. Clear as day.
Karma rounded on her.
Clear as day.
I only meant...
You could see it clear as day, could you?
He advanced on her, and she gave ground, and the others froze.
Then where in all the cold hells were you? Why was I the one who walked it? If you know, walk first instead of standing safe at the back and telling us after, when the iron's already in a man's chest.
Oh, don't you put that on me.
Doreen's fear burned off into anger. Karma started to annoy her.
I didn't see it before because I wasn't looking when you charged in. It's the only note you know how to play. And now a bolt finds you, and somehow that's my failing.
Your failing is that I do not know what you are for.
And then he had her. His hand shot out and fisted in the front of her clothes, and he drove her back against the stone wall, hard enough to knock the breath from her, his face an inch from hers, and twisted with all the rage he had not been able to spend on the crystal or on himself.
Where is your loyalty? You hang at the back and you watch and you hoard and you spend nothing. Why are you even here, woman? What do you give this company that you do not first weigh for your own profit?
Karma, don't.
Zira leaning on Ilara, both of them watching him. Balin stepped close and put one broad, battered hand on Karma's wrist, not pulling, just resting it there.
She's not her.
Karma went rigid.
Let go of the girl. We've 2 giants' worth of fight still in our bones, and a dark dungeon ahead. Spend it there.
The corridor held its breath. Karma's hand opened. Doreen dropped the half-inch back to her own feet and stayed against the wall, chest heaving, one hand smoothing the crumpled front of her shirt where his fist had been.
We move on.
Karma said, and turned away, and would not meet any of their eyes. Ilara stepped past them to the corridor's end, laid his hand on the far door, and opened it. Beyond lay a great hall, stone-built and bleak and tall, the ceiling lost in shadow above. There were no other doors, but at the hall's far end, raised on a low dais, stood a dragon, a statue of one, carved from white marble, wings half-furled, head reared back and jaws parted, every scale rendered with a craftsman's terrible patience. Ilara and Zira walked slowly toward it. The others came warily after. Before they had crossed half the hall, the statue spoke. The voice was deep and grinding, and it rolled out in Draconic, so that to the others it was only fearsome noise, but Zira understood the words.
We come at night without being fetched. We disappear by day without being stolen. What are we?
A riddling rock,
Balin muttered.
Course it is. Why wouldn't it be?
Shadows!
Doreen offered, rubbing her bruised jaw.
We come at night, vanish by day. Shadows.
I don't know about your shadows,
Balin said.
but mine does the opposite. Comes out in the daylight, goes away in the dark.
Doreen's mouth opened, then shut.
Right.
She said at last, with the air of a woman setting a thing down she hadn't finished lifting.
Not shadows, then.
Zira turned and spoke the draconic word to the statue regardless. A pause. Nothing.
Balin, you just said it. Dark.
Zira translated the word into draconic. Nothing.
Dreams. They come unfetched. And some of them end at dawn.
Ilara whispered. Zira translated. The hall stayed silent and unmoved.
The moon, then. Or the night itself.
Doreen again, leaning into the puzzle now, the fear of the corridor draining off as her quick mind found a thing to chew. Zira offered each in turn, and the statue refused them both. A silence settled. They stood in the half-dark beneath the marble dragon, and the riddle hung over them.
Stars.
Karma had scowled through the whole guessing and said nothing till now. Zira turned to the statue and shaped the word in Draconic, the sibilant Draconic name for the lights that came unfetched at night and were gone by morning, stolen by no thief, only by the sun. Then a heavy grinding shook the hall. Stones along one wall began to slide, grating back and aside, dust sifting from the seams, until a doorway gaped where blank wall had been, a secret passage opening into a larger, deeper dark. Ilara was nearest. He moved to the new doorway and peered through, blades low and ready. Beyond was a great dark space. At the very back, on a raised platform, a single torch burned with a cold and unnatural blue flame. By its glow, Ilara could make out a great stone sarcophagus standing at the platform's center, and before it a robed, hooded figure with its back turned, hands moving in slow patterns, its voice droning low through a strange chant. Then, nearer, in the dark the torchlight did not reach, where only elven eyes could pick it out, something moved. A figure stood there, a weapon held in each hand, and as Ilara's shape filled the doorway, it threw back its head and shouted in a dry, rattling voice that carried through the whole black hall.
Brothers, awaken, protect the master.
The words were elven, but it was the old dialect, the high, archaic cadence, the speech his uncle used at the table when the book came out and the children were sent away. Every vowel bent in that antique way he had half forgotten he knew. To hear it here struck him like cold water. His own family's words, the secret tongue in the mouth of that thing. Another armed figure rose into view beside it, mirror to the first. They were undead, skeletal but not the brittle clattering things of common crypts. There was a wrongness of proportion to them, too fluid, too supple, and each carried two swords. And at that moment, Lily began to scream.
No, no, not them, not them. The voices. Make it stop. The voices. Run, 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 run.
The words dissolved into a long, wordless wail, then surged back, garbled and overlapping.
I know it, oh, I know it. Lara, don't.
But what she knew she could not say. The terror had swallowed it whole, and all that reached him was the urgency, and Alar had only ever known Lily to drive him forward, took the screaming for fury and the urgency for a command.
Yes, Lily, I understand. I'll protect her.
He attacked. Ilara charged through the doorway at the nearest two-sworded guardian, his own blades whirling up to meet it. And from the first exchange, he knew this was no ordinary undead. It moved wrong in a way that was horribly, intimately right. It did not clash with him. It flowed around his guard, quick and circling, its two blades weaving a pattern that seemed half liquid, stretching and folding with the speed of the strokes so that the steel itself looked like running mercury. It found the gaps. It read his stance before he had finished settling into it. Ilara's whole body went cold. He knew this dance. It was the style whose roots ran down into his own blood. Cianlia, liquid silver, the ancient flowing art his lineage salvaged from fallen myth Draenor. He had never truly been taught it. No one had survived to teach him, but echoes of it lived in his own movements, and to meet it now in the dry hands of a dead thing was like meeting his own murdered family. For an instant he was certain the vision had already taken him. This was how they always began, not with the fire, but with something small and familiar, something known reaching up to take his hand. The mythal-weave floor pattern. It had been the floor last time. And then the floor would drop away into memory, into the fire, into his sister's screaming, and the thing he had done. And here it was. The old dialect dragged out of a dead throat, his family's art flowing in dead wrists. Surely now the floor would tip. Surely now the wave would close over him. He braced for it. Here it comes. Here it comes again.
Eli, I'm sorry, here it comes.
Then one of the cold blades licked in past his guard and opened a hot red line across his forearm, and the pain was real, wet and immediate and present, and the realization broke over him like clean water. This was no vision. The floor was still the floor. The fire was not coming. He was simply fighting, blade to blade with a long-dead skeleton in a buried hall, and the thing really wore his family's art like a stolen coat, and that was all it was. A laugh escaped him at the sheer mercy of it. He had been handed only this, steel and bone, and a fight he could win or lose with his hands. An honest skeleton trying to kill him felt like kindness. The others poured in behind him. Doreen came next, bow up. Then Karma and Balin, the dwarf already chanting low to the stone, already swelling, joints cracking like green wood, as the ancient runic magic heaped muscle on muscle, and burning chains erupted from the floor to lash one of the guardians fast.
Pain and burn, same as the giants.
Doreen loosed, and her arrow struck home in the thing's ribcage, and clattered through and out the far side, the shaft passing between bones into empty air.
Oh, that's just lovely.
Ilara found the same. His ordinary steel skated off the skeleton's guard, bit and found no purchase, but he knew the style, and knowing it, he knew where it was weak, the joints, the wrists, the binding points where blade met blade in the flowing patterns. What truly bit was magic. Balin's rune axe and Karma's talon sheared through where mortal steel skated, and Zira's fire until the guardians came apart into scorched and scattered bone. But on the platform the ritual ground on. The robed figure had not so much as turned through the whole of the fight, and then they heard it. A sound of something cracking, and a small cloud of dust was blown from the sarcophagus. Zyra flung a lance of flame across the dark toward that robed back. The thing finally turned at the heat of it, turned its face toward her, and she saw it full, withered, the dead flesh sunken to the bone, eyes like two coals long cold. It looked straight into her with a recognition that froze her blood. Then it raised one skeletal hand and disappeared, winking out of sight as cleanly as a snuffed candle. But the chant went on, and something went on breaking at the sarcophagus.
It's trying to open it.
Zyra's voice carried across the hall.
It's a lich or something. It's breaking the seals on that coffin. We don't have long.
Ilara was already running for the platform. He crossed the hall in a flowing sprint and pulled up short at the edge of a pit. The floor simply ended. A chasm perhaps 15 feet across and 10 deep, its bottom a forest of close-set blades, every one upthrust and hungry. He went down the near wall like water finding a crack, dropped between the spikes with elven grace, wove a path through the standing blades, and was up the far side before any of the others reached the lip. Doreen hung back. The thought of an invisible undead wizard appealed to her about as much as a noose. She would let others do the fighting. She had already begun assembling reasons she might tarry on the safe side, something wrong with the bow, strained muscle, and she was halfway through deciding which excuse to perform when her eye caught something atop the sarcophagus. A glint, a long, faint, secret glimmer. A sword, a magic sword by the look of that glow. Doreen's whole face changed, the calculation falling away into bright, naked want, and she flung herself at the pit. But her boots skidded on the dropping stone, and she fell, straight down onto the blades. Steel punched into her thigh and side, and she cried out, wrenched herself half free, hands shaking, and dragged a healing potion to her lips and drank it down. Then she waded on through the blade forest, snagging herself more blood, swearing the whole foul way, until she hauled out the far side with the grim determination of a woman who had decided a thing was hers. Zyra unrolled a scroll and read the silvered words upon it, and in a flash of mercury-bright light, she was simply gone from the near side and standing on the far. That left Karma and Balin at the brink. They looked down at the blades. They looked across at the ledge. They were both large men hung with iron, and threading that close-packed forest of spikes looked like a death sentence.
No man crosses that,
Balin said.
Not weaving, not in plate.
Agreed.
But the anger in Karma flared as he said it. Agreeing meant standing here, useless at the edge, while the women fought on the far side. Again. Again the women in the danger and Karma watching from the safe stone. He shoved the thought down and reached instead for what he could do. He bowed his head and prayed to Hor.
Show me my enemy, Lord of the Just Hunt. Reveal the debtor that hides.
And the answer came as a cold certainty pressed behind his eyes.
Behind the sarcophagus! It's behind the stone box! Behind it!
Ilara and Doreen heard and began to circle the great coffin from opposite sides, blades sweeping the empty air, and their edges bit something, snagged on resistance where the eye saw nothing, even as that same unyielding wrongness shrugged off the worst of mortal steel, and Karma looked at the pit again. The shame rose up one final wave, and this time he could not bear it.
We jump it.
We what?
But Karma was already moving, 3 thundering strides and a push off the lip, with all the spring his wounded leg could give, and he sailed, gloriously, impossibly, clean over the bed of blades to crash down on the far ledge, rolling, up again, talon out. Balin stared. Then his jaw set. A dwarf is no worse than a man. He backed up, lowered his head, charged, and leapt, and struck the far wall flat with a sound like a dropped anvil, and slid straight down it into the spikes.
By Moradin's beard, let the deep dark take this shithole.
Karma hauled him up out of the blades by one arm, bleeding from a dozen new holes and swearing in a tongue older than the kingdom. By the time the dwarf had his feet under him, the fight was nearly done. Ilara and Doreen between them had run the invisible thing through often enough in its hidden corner that the chant began to falter and choke. But Doreen had not, for one heartbeat of that whole foul fight, forgotten the sword. She had marked it the moment she saw it gleam atop the lid, and through every step among the blades, a back room of her mind had been doing sums. Where it lay, how many strides, who else might want it? Ilara was nearest the platform. Ilara had eyes like a cat in the dark. Ilara would be on that lid the instant the wizard fell, unless somebody gave him a reason not to be. So when she felt her blade meet that last shuddering resistance, and the unseen weight begin to sag, she did not call the kill. She called the opposite.
It's not down. Ilara, it's still moving. I felt it. Hit it again. Don't let it slip past you.
It was a lie, the chant already gone to silence, the thing already collapsing into dust and a single dropped circlet of black iron that pattered to the stone. But Ilara took the lie and spun back to the empty corner, blades flashing down through air that held nothing, carving a dead enemy into smaller pieces of nothing while she bought her seconds. And in those seconds Doreen moved. She crossed to the sarcophagus and went up its side. The lid bucked and slammed beneath her palms, something inside it heaving against the last seal, thudding, scraping, testing the stone with a strength that traveled up through her wrists. She did not let it stop her. She got a knee onto the lid, reached and closed her hand around the hilt. The instant it was hers, she knew it was no common blade. It weighed like a dagger, a long sword that should have dragged at the wrist, and instead seemed to float in the grip, balanced past all reason. She came down off the lid in one smooth drop and held it up before her face, turning it slowly, and for a moment the whole heaving room fell away. The steel was slim and bright and clean, no notch or pit in all its length, and along the flat ran lines of runes that caught the cold blue torchlight and threw it back silver. Gods! The sums ran themselves before she could stop them. Elven work, true elven work, ancient by the runes. Halia would weep for it, would empty a strongbox for it and call it a bargain. Some soft-handed merchant in Neverwinter would pay more, and pay it gladly. Or, and this thought came warmer, slower, she might keep it. Just keep it. A blade like this on a person's hip said things about that person. It said you were not to be trifled with. It said you were owed a certain respect. She was still admiring it, half in love, when she felt Ilara at her shoulder. The elf had drifted to her without a sound, and his eyes were on the blade in her hands, and something moved behind his still pale face, deep and old and unwelcome. Doreen's grip tightened, and a cold prickle ran up the back of her neck. She recognized the script now for what it was, elven, like the elf, and she did not like at all the way he was looking at the thing she had just bled across a spike pit to reach.
I've seen this script before.
Ilara murmured. He did not reach for it.
There was a wall once, before the burning. Hands that are gone now.
His head tilted.
I think it knows me, or the ones I came from.
And inside, Ilara was pulled toward the blade the way a man half drowned is pulled toward air. It was kin. It was the silver line of his blood made into steel, House Neradel, Morning Vale, a thing forged for hands like his by hands like his. Part of him ached to take it and feel whether it would answer him, but he did not reach for it. He had unmade his family with these hands. He had no right to carry the sword his forefathers carried, no right to touch the legacy he had burned. To take it up would be a blasphemy worse than any he had yet committed, so he only looked and let his hand stay empty. Doreen understood none of this. She heard, "It knows me. It knew the ones I came from." She heard a claim being laid, soft and sideways, the way the mad elf laid everything, and she felt her treasure being reached for, and every instinct she owned closed around the hilt like a fist.
It doesn't know you,
She said.
It knows whoever's holding it, and that's me.
She took a step back, putting her body between Elara and the blade, and slid it through her belt at last, not for safekeeping, but as to seal her claim. Elara said nothing. He only kept looking at it, and somehow the not arguing was worse than arguing would have been, because it meant he was not done, because mad things did not let go of what they fixed on. And she had seen the greed in the elf. A small thought surfaced, and she filed it where she filed all such things. He'll come for it. Sleeping or in some fight, he'll have his hand on it. Better I think now how I'd be quit of him before he does. The lid heaved again under some buried strength, and held, the last seals biting, for now. They gathered, panting, around the great stone box.
We should leave it.
Doreen had one hand on the new sword at her hip, as if it might be taken back.
The way in's the way out. Nothing between us and the surface but a spike pit. I'm not aching to meet whatever's been sealed up since the mountain ate this place.
I'd as soon we kept our skins. I'm a coward in my old age. I've earned it.
Karma did not answer at once. He stood looking at the sarcophagus with a strange flat hunger, and when he spoke his voice was low and certain, in a way it had not been since the crystal room.
There is a debt here.
He set his hand flat on the cold stone of the lid, over the straining seam.
Something that owed the death god its bones long ago, and did not pay. That is what undead are, Balin. Debtors. Whore's debtors, every one. I prayed in the dark back there, and he answered me. He put his hand on my shoulder and turned me toward this box. It was no chance that walked me down here.
He had fled the crystal. He had run from a whisper. He had stood in the corner while the women held the ground, and the shame of it had ridden him the whole way down. Not this. Not again.
I will not run from this one. I have run enough today to last me a life.
And Zyra, slumped against the wall with the crystal's hollow still ringing in her, heard her own pulse answer before her reason could. The thought had been clawing at her since the dream last night. Ahead was the thing she had come all this way to find, and every closed door between her and it felt like a hand at her throat.
There were no other doors.
Her voice was a thread, and she spent what little she had on it.
No stairs. No way down but this. If the road goes on, it goes through the box, under the lid, beneath the dead thing. It's the one road we haven't tried.
She made herself meet their eyes and hoped the wanting did not show.
We can't leave it shut and call this finished.
It was the deciding word, hers and Karma's, together, and the rest fell in behind it. Balin spat and hefted his axe. They drew their weapons and set themselves around the box. And as if it had only been waiting for them to choose, the lid groaned, ground, and began to lift along one edge, dust and ancient air hissing out from the dark seam beneath. The sarcophagus stood open a hand's breadth, the dark within it absolute, and from that dark something stirred.
Lyskintan yn y ffilm gweithio sbren o'r gorwedd tan a
tell. I cannot tell.